CJRed presents Accidental Proposal by CJRed. Chapter 35. Master This. Hermione blew out her breath in frustration as she glared at her father-in-law. The man was a sadist. A great teacher, but a fucking sadist. "What do you mean we have to stay here for another 3 days?" She hissed at him, wiping her sweaty hair out of her face. They were in Egypt, in the middle of the desert, working in some godforsaken wizard's tomb. She had to admit, she was learning more in the week than she had in the last year and a half with her arse of a charms master. But she missed Draco. The bond was pulling at her, and she knew it had to be just as miserable for him. "I can't be away from Draco that long. Oh, dear master," she said in irritation. He made her call her master, but she always used her most obnoxious tone. He raised an eyebrow in challenge at her. "We can leave. However, we would need to return for another week, or we can stay for 3 days more now and finish what we need to finish." Hermione glared at him. "Why would it take a week if we came back again?" "It took 2 days to take down the wards that we will have to put back up," he said in an annoyed tone. Hermione closed her eyes and pinched her nose in irritation. "Gods, I despise you, Lucius Malfoy!" He snorted, leaning against the wall, and then hissed, "Use my proper name and title. Damn it, Hermione." She did grin now, glad she had irritated him. Technically, Lucius Malfoy was still supposed to be in France. They had gotten special permission for her master, his alias, for this trip from the Egyptian ministry. Heaven only knew how much gold had exchanged hands to make the French ministry turn a blind eye that Lucius Malfoy was actually missing. But what had made her really grin was that he still couldn't call her Mrs. Malfoy, so he called her by her first name. He could, of course, call her apprentice, and he did when he was not irritated with her. He just knew that hearing her given name on the wizard's lips made her want to hex him, which she casually did now, laughing as he blocked it. They had given up not throwing random hexes at one another after the first week. Both had decided it would just simply be unavoidable. She had made up rather a few charms to send at the obnoxious man who was her charms master. "I never remember your stupid alias, master," she sneered at him. It was the truth. She hadn't bothered learning his alias because she was never going to call him by it. She preferred not to use any name at all with the aristocratic man. It was the ultimate insult, not addressing him by any name or title. She used master because it was demanded in company, and there were workers around them. But in private she just nodded or grunted at him, and she never ever called him sir. Lucius had gritted his teeth and just accepted that she was not going to play nice. Wise of him, because most of the time she was 1 hour away from sending an Avada at the man. He might be bloody brilliant, but she could still not handle him in large doses, and the last 6 days had tested her beyond endurance. "Fine, 3 more days, but you can tell my husband, master," she said, turning and walking away to cool down. She wasn't supposed to be hexing her master in front of mixed company, and 3 of the curse-breakers working with them had returned. Draco took the letter from the owl with his father's alias crest on it, and frowned. Why was he writing to Draco? Had something happened to Hermione? Quickly he threw a stasis charm over the potion he was working on, and walked out of the laboratory to read the letter. When he did, he was glad he had left the dungeon that he brewed in with Snape. His rage was palpable. "Why is your hair glowing?" was drawled by his master. "My father is keeping Hermione in the desert another 3 days. He claims they have too much more to do, and leaving that could mean a longer stay next time due to the wards on this damned tomb he has us studying, sir," Draco added, realizing his tone was anything but civil. Severus snorted and then pinched the bridge of his nose. "You two have only ever managed 6 days separated since the bond formed, correct?" Draco gave a tight nod and felt his chest tighten with dread. "Do you think he is testing it, just to see what happens to us?" Severus looked at him and then was completely honest. "Yes, I rather think he is. And to be fair, we do need to know. Last time, after 6 days, you became unable to eat and sleep. I think he will probably try to see if there are any charms he can use on your wife to alleviate those symptoms. If you two are ever separated, it would be good to know what, if anything, we can do to help you both in such a situation." Draco snorted and tossed down the letter on the desk in the study he shared with Snape. Bastard could have warned us. Severus smirked. But that wouldn't be your father's style, now would it? Draco groaned and stomped off back to his potion. He still had 3 hours left of brewing. He would probably be fearing for his father's life. When Hermione figured out his latest trick up his sleeve, she was liable to strangle him with her bare hands. 3 days later found a desperate pair of lovers holding on to one another in their town home. "Never again," Draco said raggedly. "That was bloody awful." Hermione nodded. "Well, having your father volunteer me to experiment on wasn't pleasant for him. Once I figured out what the brat was doing, if it makes you feel better." Draco chuckled. "I noticed the mark on his face. Large mole. Will it go away?" Hermione curled up her lip in disgust. "Yes, but only with a potion, so Severus will have to save him. He should have just told me his intentions instead of pulling that crap." Draco nodded but looked her over. "But did anything work?" She sighed heavily. "The charms for hunger did. I probably will gain a stone thanks to those, but not the ones for sleep. I had to take dreamless sleep. How are you?" Draco sighed. "Severus brewed something that made me hungry as well, and I too relied on dreamless sleep, but my heart started hurting today." Hermione nodded and started tearing off his clothes. "Yes, mine too. Please get your clothes off and take us to the shower. I have sand everywhere, and I think if we don't renew our bond, my heart might stop." Draco gave a grunt and stripped, following her into the shower, where he hungrily looked over her lush body. She was filling out, no longer the young schoolgirl, but now starting to become a woman. Her hips were lusher, her breast fuller. He certainly did not mind the view. Then she turned around and gave him a sultry look as she stepped into the shower, and he was lost. He quickly dropped his pants and climbed in with her, helping wash her down and then tossing her up on the bench shelf he had transfigured to be just the perfect height. Instead, they got reacquainted and shattered the glass in the bathroom when the magic from their bond moved through them. "Well, that was new," Hermione said, looking at the destroyed room. Draco laughed and reached down carefully to grab his wand from his discarded clothes, fixing the broken glass before he let her step down. "Our bond renewals are getting stronger. Any idea why, O charms mistress?" Hermione snorted. "I have 6 more months of torture with your father before I am a mistress." She looked around thoughtfully, though, moving her hand through the air. "I could still feel the magic. Can you?" Draco hummed at this point and wrapped her in a fluffy towel. "Ponder it later. Right now, I would like to make love to you on a bed, away from any glass." Hermione grinned impishly and then winked. 6 months later. Hermione blew out an irritated breath as she looked over the board of charms masters who were deciding her mastery. Draco was going through the same intense process in another town in France, and they had been separated for 6 days now. Apparently, the older the wizard, the longer they took to do anything, and these 6 were all ancient and irritatingly slow. "I understand you have a soul bond," one of the ancient wizards said casually. Hermione nodded. "Yes, that is true, which is why part of my research was on such bonds, and what charms I felt were involved in the bond itself." The wizard nodded before sitting back. "Fascinating work. You have added a whole new facet of study to such bonds and their charms. Would you be opposed to continuing this line of study, Mrs. Malfoy?" Hermione frowned. "Am I to understand that you would like someone like me to undertake this research full-time?" Nods all around, and Hermione let out a small breath of shock. "Well, no, I would not be opposed to such a venture." The head wizard smiled at her and then said, "Well then, congratulations, Mistress Malfoy. You not only earned your charms mastery, but you will be spearheading research into a magic we have little to no content on." Hermione took a deep breath, and then stood up, bowing to them. "Thank you," she said breathlessly. Draco stepped back from the 6 cauldrons and nodded respectfully at the wizards who stepped forward to observe the potions, mumbling too low for him to hear. Not that he needed to. He knew the potions were perfect. He had been working on one of them for the last 3 months and invented it himself. It was a variation on dreamless sleep, one with fewer side effects that allowed you to dream, meaning you could take it more often without risking madness. He waited for an hour as the old wizards moved from cauldron to cauldron, before they took their seats again, and gestured for him to sit down at the small table and chair in front of them. "Well, Mr. Malfoy, I must say we have not seen such proficiency in a few of the potions since Master Snape came through here." Draco nodded, his face totally emotionless. "Master Snape was my godfather, as well as my potions professor for 5 years of my schooling, sirs." 2 of the wizards nodded, and Draco let out a small, silent breath of relief. His style had always mimicked Snape's, and this had been a worry for him when they had figured out that 5 of the 6 masters testing him had also tested Severus. "We find that there is a remarkable amount of work here on potions that left us rather stumped. You not only researched a new potion, but you perfected more than 50 others." Draco nodded, not feeling the need to remark on that. Why were they stumped that he went out of his way to make sure he was granted his mastery? The head wizard of the board nodded, folding his hands. "Congratulations, Master Malfoy. We welcome you to our esteemed company." Draco let the famous Malfoy smirk loose as he stood up and bowed. That night, when he walked into the bedroom of their home in Paris, it was to find Hermione sleeping. She had told him that she had passed her mastery yesterday. He had been itching to get back to her ever since. He stripped quickly and climbed into the bed, groaning as he found her naked. The minx. He hadn't told her he was coming home tonight. "Why are you naked?" he whispered as he sucked on her neck, knowing she was awake by her breathing. "I was hoping you would come home tonight," she answered breathlessly. "So?" "Master. You can call me Master now," he said teasingly. She snorted but rolled over, kissing him passionately. "Cheeky bastard. But I am so proud of you." He smiled at her and cupped her face, looking deeply into her eyes. "As I am proud of you. But is it enough now, Hermione? Or do you still want to get a double mastery? Severus will do it, but he thinks you are just being a swot." She smiled. "I admit after completing one I am not so excited about completing another. I suppose it was ambitious of me to think I could do them both at the same time, and your father and godfather both lied to me when they told us it was possible." Draco snorted. "How angry will you be when I tell you I knew there was no way you could do them both at once?" She sighed. "Not very angry. I was raised by muggles. In their world getting dual degrees is possible. 2 masteries at once is simply not doable." Draco chuckled. "Severus said whenever you want to start, he will accommodate you." Hermione kissed Draco's chin. "Well, I might not have time. The Charms Board has a rather intensive task for me about soul bonds." Draco looked down at her in surprise. "They asked you to continue your work." Hermione nodded happily. "Demanded it, more like. I will have plenty to keep me busy for at least a decade. Maybe after our children go to Hogwarts, I will pursue another mastery. But for now, I am rather busy." Draco pulled her away from him. "Children? Do you have any idea when you would like to start having these children?" Hermione gave him a sultry look. "I stopped taking the potion before I left for my mastery trial." Draco let his breath rush over her, and then his mouth crashed down on hers as his runes started to burn. "Tonight. I can't tell you how I know, but I know it will be tonight. So be sure." Hermione hugged him even tighter and wiggled so that she could flip him and climb on top of him, holding his gaze as she lowered herself onto him. "Tonight sounds like a perfect night to me." Draco groaned and allowed her to rock back and forth before he grew frustrated and flipped her again, kissing her as he slammed into her, knowing that he was going hard and fast, and also knowing that she wouldn't mind because he doubted either of them would be getting any sleep tonight. Slow and sweet could be next. He kissed her the entire time he made love to her, and when she climaxed, she bit his lip until it bled. He didn't mind it at all because he was pretty sure he was leaving bruises on her sides as the magic of the bond washed over them. Hermione heard the glass shattering in the bedroom and pulled her lips away from his and laughed. "We broke everything again. I guess my charm to stop that is no good." Draco smirked into her neck, breathing heavily. "My rune is burning, and with how intense that just was, it could just be the circumstances surrounding this bond renewal, and your charm will work fine next time." Hermione kissed his cheek and then wiggled to get him to stop crushing her. "I think we will be at this all night, but I live to get lost in you on nights like this. I sometimes think about going away for a week, just so I could come back to rebonding sex." Hermione pinched him but sighed, stretching and then wrapping her legs back around him. "May I have it slow now, Draco? I missed you." He let out a small moan and then kissed her tenderly. "As slow as you can stand it, love. Merlin, I missed you too. You know I love you more than my own life."